I mean, a big inspiration for the book is like sort of the supernatural like history of my family, like in reality, even sort of extending beyond like fictional worlds that I might have explored as a kid. The kernel that sort of inspired the book is the story that I heard growing up. I grew up in Appalachian, Virginia, and my grandmother for a brief time during her adulthood practiced Appalachian folk magic. It's this magical practice. I mean, really, it's born out of a historical need for healers in the communities. So it goes way back to when people started to settle that region. A lot of Scotch Irish, and they settled in the region, and the culture started to mix with the Native American cultures that are also there, with Black culture that was also there. All these different cultures sort of starting to mingle. And because, there were so few resources, they were cut off from the rest of the world. They had to figure out how to heal their communities and their families. And so these older women called granny witches sort of became the main healers in these communities, in these isolated mountain communities. And so they did a lot of like, a lot of like midwifery, like a lot of fertility stuff, a lot of helping babies get born. But then there's the other side of it where, they could help someone take revenge on a neighbor who had betrayed them, or try to bring good fortune to a house, or nowadays, like there are more modern spells that you can cast to like have a favorable ruling when you go to court, and keep the police away. It's not Wiccanism. This is something that came out of the local culture, and what's cool about it is it's not formalized, it's not centralized. Every family, every practitioner is going to have their own bag of tricks, like their own traditions. And a lot of it is based on sort of being able to use the resources that they have around them in the yard, around the house. And that's like the essence of it, is sort of resourcefulness. My mom told me this story that one day she found out that her husband was cheating on her with a local woman. So she gathered all of her women together, and they cast a spell on this woman, trying to run her out of town, basically. And the next week, the woman died in a tragic car accident. And my grandmother felt responsible and burned her black book and vowed never to practice magic ever again. And this is one of those stories that you hear growing up, and it sort of implants in your brain. And at some point, it just started to grow like a larger story that inspired this book. So Lee, our main protagonist, comes from the Buck family in the fictional town of Craw Valley. And her grandmother, Belva, is sort of the matriarch of the family, and she is a granny witch in the community. And there's like, more history that unravels as the story goes on. But she had a daughter, Lee's mother, named Redbud, and she was a very powerful witch. But then something happened, and she stopped practicing. And Lee, sort of by virtue of that, lost contact with that part of her history and her culture. Redbud cut off all contact with Belva and sort of the magic. And so when she returns many years later as an adult, a big part of her journey is sort of reconnecting with this aspect of her culture, aspect of her origin that she's lost touch with. So they had a very close relationship when Lee was very young, before they sort of lost touch. And so being able to reconnect with her too, it's like she's finding that support, that strong family that she has lost. She's been feeling untethered sort of for most of her adulthood, and sort of being able to reconnect with her provides like a tethering that she was missing. So I wanted to show people of the next generation not as concerned with sort of upward mobility and leaving home and cutting off sort of connections with your roots and like sort of becoming your own person, like more of this like millennial individualist narrative. I wanted to show like the next generation like really interested in reconnecting with their culture, and not having the same priorities in terms of money and flashy career and big house. Her children, who she brings into this culture for the first time, really love this place. They don't have the complicated relationship that she has with it, and so they immediately see the value and feel at home there. A big part of the book is her teenage daughter also discovering her power, alongside sort of, you know, her adolescent, her like adolescent development. And there's a tension between mother and daughter in that case. The mother thinks that she's naive, that she doesn't understand how terrible this place can be. And the daughter thinks that she is just sort of backwards and isn't giving it a chance. Her name's Meredith. And Lee's real name is Opaline, but she changed her name to Lee when she left Appalachia. And she gave Meredith this name that she thought sounded sort of like, I don't know, rich, preppy, like total, like, you know, it's not Belva, it's not Opaline or Redbud, you know. She thinks it sounds sort of elite. And it was really fun to write a teenager. I feel like I still remember what it was like to be that age. I don't feel separated from that at all. And so I just got to access sort of that time period in my own internal landscape, and it's fun. But what's cool is like mother and daughter actually going through like somewhat similar trajectories. I think that, you know, when even if you're 38, 40 and you go through a divorce, you sort of have like maybe a second or third adolescence, like some people do. And you get to see Lee going through that a little bit.